No one noticed him at first. Not when he stepped off the unarmed diplomatic shuttle. Not when he walked the cratered landing bay of Halon 3, the last surviving city of the Kravex species, now a fortress of shadows. He was just a man. Human. Barehanded. No escort. Just a black case in his grip. Even the sentry drones didn't react. His ID chip checked out. Diplomatic status. Classified conflict resolver. The Kravex had never heard of such a rank before. Neither had the Council. General Arval, first Talon of the Kravex Dominion, scoffed as he watched the feed from the throne chamber's high screen. "This is what Earth sends," he growled, talons flexing. "No armor. No weapons. Not even an escort?" The war priest hissed in contempt. 2 decades of bloodshed across 17 systems, and Earth's answer was a man in a gray coat. But Chancellor Vian said nothing. He simply leaned forward, watching the human's slow, measured pace as he moved deeper into the citadel. There was something off about him. Not in his gait. That was too normal. Not in his face. That was unreadable. It was in the silence. Humans always talked. Boasted. Flashed teeth or quoted treaties. This one hadn't said a word. Not when he landed. Not when greeted. Not when asked for purpose. His case, too, remained unopened. Matte black. Scuffed. Old. But the guards who scanned it twice, and lived, had taken a sudden, unnerving step back. "Let him through," Vian had said. Now, the man stood before the high chamber gates. "Open," Vian commanded. A hiss of hydraulics. A flicker of torches. Then silence again. The chamber went still. Hundreds of Kravex officers in full ceremonial armor stood in a circle around the negotiation pillar, a cruel stone altar carved from the bones of defeated rivals. War trophies flanked the walls, burned Terran flags, shattered Mechwalker helms, even a scorched child's doll mounted above the grand banner. The human looked at none of it. He stepped forward, placed his black case on the pillar, and finally looked up. His eyes were gray. Not cold. Not angry. Not dead. But hollow. Like they'd seen something the rest of the room hadn't. Or couldn't. Arval growled again. "Identify yourself, Terran." The human opened the case. Not a weapon. Not a document. A stone. Small. Obsidian. Marked with ancient Earth symbols half burnt. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. His voice was low. Hoarse. Like it had been silent too long. Arval sneered. "A rock. Speak plain or die." The human's fingers touched the stone. "It was the last thing my daughter held before your fire rained down on Levora Station." The room shifted. Jaws twitched. "She was 5, he said. No trembling in his voice. No accusation. Just fact. Vian stepped forward now. "And you've come for revenge?" The human shook his head. "No." Another pause. "I've come to make sure no one ever builds another Levora again." Silence. Then, a whispering buzz from the walls. Because behind the black case's foam lining was something else. Something humming. A device none of them recognized, small, old-looking. But too clean. Too precise. Vian took a step back. "What is that?" The human didn't answer. He turned the device slightly. It activated without sound. And every Kravex officer's implant, the tactical mindchips embedded in their skulls since youth, began to glow faintly red. Panic. Screams. A few clawed at their own heads. Others froze in place. "I designed your neural frameworks," the man said calmly. Vian's eyes went wide. "That's impossible. 20 years ago. I was Earth's lead in bio-cyber warfare. You copied our tech. But not our safeguards." He stepped back from the device. "Consider this a shutdown." And then, without another word, he closed the case. And all around him, the Kravex generals fell. One by one. Like puppets with cut strings. No war cry. No charge. Just collapse. Arval was the last, claws reaching toward the pillar, toward the stone, before his body locked, then fell. The human took the stone, pocketed it, and left the case behind. As he walked out of the chamber, he whispered again, too soft for anyone but the walls to hear. They told me to end the war. He didn't look back. But the war was never the problem. 3 light-years away, in the sealed halls of Orbital Outpost Vesta, the transmission hit Earth's strategic command like a silent earthquake. The footage was short. No explosions. No weapons drawn. Just a silent room full of dead warlords. But the silence told them everything. And it terrified them. General Kane stood frozen, hands clenched behind his back. His reflection hovered in the glass wall that separated command from the silent stars beyond. "Is this confirmed?" he asked. Lieutenant Harrow didn't answer immediately. He just replayed the footage. Again. Same man. Same coat. Same case. Same results. "It's him," Harrow finally said. "Operation Land Shadow is active." Kane exhaled slowly. "We buried that program. We thought we did," Harrow replied. Behind them, the room filled with murmurs. Analysts. Bio-cyber specialists. Ghost Team veterans. All watching the screen as one word burned across the top left corner. Necrosics. That wasn't just a device. That was a relic. A last resort failsafe, designed during Earth's darkest days, when the Dominion had begun glassing entire Terran colonies without warning, and Earth's leaders had whispered, "If we lose the edge, we burn the board." Necrosics had one creator, one controller, and one condition of use. He had to lose everything. Which meant this wasn't retaliation. This was a man with nothing left. Harrow pulled up the dossier. There were no names. Just a code name. Dresden. "Who activated him?" Kane asked quietly. "Unknown. Protocol Redveil says autonomous resurrection. No chain of command." He picked himself. Kane turned from the screen. "Then God help the Kravex." But Harrow didn't look away. Because he knew better. "Not just them, sir." Kane frowned. "If he's activated," Harrow said, "he's not coming back for orders." He tapped the screen. "He's coming for everyone who built the system." The footage changed. Classified images. Obsidian case. Necrosics emitter. Kravex mind implants failing in sync. Every high command official on Earth who had ever signed off on cyber warfare flinched. Because the man now walking through the galaxy wasn't bound by Earth law anymore. He'd become something worse than a rebel. He was a shadow they made. A weapon without a leash. One they had buried in bureaucracy and black ink, believing grief would never wake him. But Dresden's grief had grown teeth. And now he was hunting. Not just Kravex. Not just warlords. But architects. Everyone who profited from keeping the war machine turning. Meanwhile, aboard the fractured ruins of an independent freighter drifting between trade lanes, a pair of scavengers stumbled across a body. Not dead. Sleeping. Man in a coat. Bleeding. Unarmed. Beside him, a black case. Krex, the older of the two, reached for it. "Don't," the younger hissed. "That's Earth tech," Krex snorted. "Then why's he lying in a pool of his own blood?" But before his hand touched the handle, the man's eyes opened. Gray. Hollow. The younger one ran. Krex didn't even have time to scream. Above the freighter, the stars shimmered. And somewhere deep in the dark, word was spreading through smuggler bands and mercenary hubs. A human ghost is walking the trade lanes. No name. No ship. Just an old black case and a list that gets shorter. By the hour. In the sewers beneath Concord Station, a floating city-state built by exiles, diplomats, and deserters, a girl no older than 15 sat cross-legged, soldering stolen drone parts into a breathing rig. The lights flickered above her, casting long shadows over the worn walls scrawled with languages no empire bothered to catalog. She didn't flinch when the footsteps echoed. didn't look up when the black boots stopped at the archway. She only spoke when she saw the shadow cast across her work. "You're 2 days late," she said. The man didn't respond. Just stepped forward, slow, careful. The girl glanced up. "Let me guess. You activated it." His coat was wet. Torn. The black case scuffed. His eyes, same as she remembered, hollow, but still somehow focused. She dropped the rig. "They said you'd never use it again. I didn't come for permission. You came for absolution." He didn't answer. She stood, brushing grease from her fingers. "I'm not the one who needs forgiving." "No." She stepped around him, heading toward a terminal built from 5 species tech. "The Kravex won't be the last. The whole machine depends on the war. You know that." "I do. You're not just shutting down armies." "I know." She paused. Her hand hovered over the keypad. "You're going after the Founders?" A long silence. Then, yes. That word hung in the air like a blade. The Founders weren't a species. They were a secret. 5 beings who had survived every war, every council collapse, every galactic purge. They didn't lead fleets. They built them. They didn't fire weapons. They sold them. They lived in shadows. Moved through proxies. But Dresden remembered. They'd been there when the Dominion signed the glassing orders. They'd been there when Earth's plea for ceasefire was met with silence. They'd been there when Lavora burned. And now, one of their ghosts had come home. The girl, they called her Wick, typed a string of commands. A map flickered to life. Not a war map. A trade map. Highlighted were convoy paths, black sightway stations, buried vaults, and one blinking red dot. Archelix Prime, a classified station orbiting a collapsed star, supposedly decommissioned. "They meet there," she said. He stepped forward, silently memorizing. "They won't run," she added. "They'll mock you first. Call it sentiment. Say you're broken." "I am." Wick looked at him. Then nodded. "That's why you'll win." Hours later, Wick stood alone at the tunnel's edge, watching the old man vanish into steam and wires. She whispered to no one. "They made you think you were a scalpel." Behind her, the terminal buzzed as encrypted footage began uploading. "To cut clean." Static blurred the image of a burning freighter, a fallen warlord, a trail of silent deaths too surgical for military hands. "But they built a hammer." She turned. "And now they're gonna learn what happens when the hammer remembers who it was meant to break." In the black of space, Dresden drifted alone, no beacon, no call sign. But every station he passed went quiet. Every ship he passed turned its lights off. And every whisper in the dark carried the same phrase. "The quiet man is coming. Not to win the war. To end the ones who needed it." There had never been a room like this. Not in any empire. Not on any world. It floated in orbit of a dead star, wrapped in silence, masked by a wormhole fracture. No map showed it. No species claimed it. But everyone knew the name, Archelix Prime. The Founders sat in a circle of gold-threaded chairs, each older than the civilizations outside their walls. No names spoken. No species revealed. Just roles. The architect. The banker. The executor. The seal. And the one called voice. They were the war behind the war. The calculus behind every genocide, the hands beneath every puppet throne. And tonight they had gathered to discuss the problem. The silence. The shadow. The man with the case. "He's an anomaly," growled the executor. "A failed asset. Nothing more." "You said that last week," said the architect, tapping clawed fingers together. "He shut down the Kravex network. Silently. With one device. We should assume he'll attempt to locate this facility," muttered the banker. "He already has," said a new voice. The table stilled. Because the voice had spoken. He never did. Now he raised one hand, and in it was a chip. Not glowing. Not active. Just warm. Intercepted signal. Stealth band Earthwave. Low yield. Meant to slip past border scans, the banker hissed. He's calling for backup. No, said the voice. He's declaring intent. The screen behind them lit up. A simple message, written in Terran glyphs. One case. One man. One final debt. The seal leaned forward. You think he's planning to destroy the station? No, said the voice. He's planning to unmake us. And still, they laughed. Because they had ruled wars longer than any Deathworlder had lived. They had made monsters from martyrs, devils from orphans. What was one broken man with an old grudge? But that's what made them fools. Because they had forgotten what Earth remembers. That grief doesn't stay broken. It sharpens. 2 decks below, the infiltration began. Silent. Clean. Dresden moved through the ventilation columns like a memory, present but untouchable. His coat darkened by blood not his own. The black case magnetically sealed to his spine. He passed guards asleep at posts, unaware their brainstems had been pulsed to blackout 2 minutes earlier. Past drones frozen mid-scan, their AI cores quietly melting from a code string he'd written a decade ago. He wasn't attacking the station. He was erasing it. Not the walls. The records. Line by line, he purged databases. Transaction logs. Network ties. War vaults. The founders didn't fear weapons. They feared exposure. They built their power on lies, and Dresden, in his silence, had just become the truth. In the council room, panic broke at last. We're being erased. He's inside. No exit signals, he's sealed us in. The voice stood calmly. We built the monster. Now, he thought, we see if we can survive it. But when he turned, Dresden was already there. No weapons. No guards. Just the coat. The case. And a single sentence. You don't get to disappear. Then he opened the case. And everything went white. The light was not fire. It was not heat. It was silence made manifest, a pulse of null that cancelled everything it touched. Not destroyed. Erased. The founders didn't scream. They didn't run. The room itself didn't shatter. It simply ceased. The golden chairs flickered out. The walls unraveled like ash in reverse. And in the center of it, unmoved, stood Dresden, not glowing, not triumphant, just still. When it was done, the Ark's core systems rebooted, but they found nothing to run. No command structure. No AI control. No ID markers. The Council of Wolves was gone. Their records burned. Their names deleted. Their legacy, white like dust from the hands of a dead god. But the war wasn't. Because war is a habit. And habits don't break when you burn their makers. They shift. Adapt. Find new mouths to feed them. Dresden knew this. And as he walked the dead corridors of Helix Prime, he could hear it already, the galaxy stitching itself back together, trying to explain away the silence. Another anomaly. Another glitch. They would blame pirates. Or radiation bursts. Or a rogue AI. But not him. Never him. Because the system couldn't afford to believe that one man, without orders or backup, had walked into the heart of galactic power and turned it to mist. And that was the real victory. He didn't just kill the heads of the machine. He made them impossible to remember. Elsewhere, Wix sat before a wall of static. The signal was gone. All footage lost. All data scrubbed. But she didn't need proof. She knew. She turned to the encrypted terminal beside her and opened a file. Inside, dossiers. Hundreds. Planetary governors. Weapon contractors. Shipyard owners. Every spoke in the war machine's wheel. And above them, written in the oldest human code. Dresden is not the end. He is the beginning of silence. She closed the file. And smiled. Back on Helix Prime, the man stood alone at the observation deck, watching the collapsed star swirl below. He opened the case one last time. Inside now was only the stone. The one from Lavora. He held it for a moment. Then let it fall. Down. Into gravity's mouth. Into the black. He didn't watch it vanish. Just turned. And walked toward the dark. Because grief, he'd learned, doesn't die. It evolves. The galaxy didn't scream. It whispered. Like it always did when something sacred broke, not loudly, not all at once. Just a shift in the wind. A chill in the data streams. A hesitation on a trigger. A pause in a plan. Because though no news bulletin mentioned Dresden, though no official voice confirmed the Ark's destruction, and though every surveillance drone reported only static, they all knew. From the far moons of Salus Rift to the merchant halls of Halcyon Spire, rumors spread like gas through a sealed room. The founders were gone. Not assassinated. Not replaced. Erased. And though the warships still sailed, and the contractors still fed them, something had cracked beneath it all. The quiet had weight now. Men once drunk on authority glanced over their shoulders. Women who profited off burned planets paused before signing. And the youngest among them, those raised in the shadows of fleets and flags, whispered a question never dared before. What if we're not invincible? On a derelict mining colony, 2 mercenaries found a symbol etched into the side of a rusted terminal. Just a circle. And a line through it. They stared at it for a long time. One of them muttered, "Is that the mark?" The other didn't answer. Because he'd heard what happened to those who tried to trace it. On Earth, in a quiet room beneath a mountain forgotten by time, an old general opened a drawer. Inside, a medal. Terran black. Unawarded. Unclaimed. He stared at it for a while, then set it back. Closed the drawer. Locked it. And whispered, "I told them not to activate him." Somewhere between star systems, a man walked. No shuttle. No ship. Just an EVA frame and silence. The case was gone now. No need for it. He didn't leave messages anymore. Didn't take names. Didn't destroy systems. He just found the ones who made war with their mouths, and taught them what it meant to face someone who'd lost everything because of people like them. He never ran. He never struck first. But they always fell. Because monsters know their makers. And he was the one they built too well. Years passed. Wars rose, flickered, died. But something in the galaxy changed. No records logged it. No broadcasts named it. But under every uniform, behind every command, a question echoed. Not, "Who rules?" Not, "What weapon wins?" But something simpler. More ancient. What if he's still out there? And they meant Dresden. Even if they didn't say his name. Even if the next generation believed he was a myth. Because planets stopped burning the way they used to. Because warlords started dying quietly in their sleep. Because silent cases started appearing on desks unopened. Untouched. But twice. And so the galaxy grew quiet. The war machine still spun, like it had started remembering something it had worked world with no name, beneath a canopy of ancient. She wore no insignia. Cars, her eyes reflected something sharp and purpose. A student of silence. Behind her, in the shade, sat the man. Still watching. Still listening. Because that chapter was closed. A garden, and a warning carved into the stone. But the silence remains. And beneath build monsters, pray they don't learn who made them. Not with a treaty. Not with a cell burden. And walking away is stop fighting. Even when no one says thank you. Because silence, not revenge, and maybe, one day, could be again.